Hi there, welcome back to the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina.annunziato. Thank you so much for joining me on this fine evening. I just got back from the 9th annual VidCon. I had a great time there. It was great success, and I'd like to give you a nice scope of what went down there. We'll possibly do a live stream talking about it, but I would also like to do a Ginescast discussing it as well. In the meantime, I have my regularly scheduled programming for you, so please sit back and enjoy the Ginescast number 7, Telegraphing Your Punch. As a writer, I pay attention to the words that I use a lot more closely than others, I think, if I'm going to go ahead and pat myself on the back here. I also have a tendency to give people the benefit of the doubt when they're speaking to me on a kind of personal basis. I operate under the law of no one has any real reason to lie to me unless there's an actual human piece of garbage standing right in front of me. But then again, I don't think you directly deal or interact with those kinds of people as much as the internet believes that you do. At least I hope that's your case, that you don't have to deal with these kinds of folks. So I'm always here to listen to things that people tell me. I'm very interested in people's stories because I believe that everybody has one to tell. And I'm not going to be rude and talk over people. I'm going to let them speak, and then if they want me to respond, then I'm going to go ahead and do it anyway. But more importantly, I like to focus on what exactly they're saying to me and what kind of information they're willing to share with me, because we're giving away all sorts of different information to each other these days. People are giving away pertinent stories and plans and all sorts of different ideas, and why they do that is kind of a mystery to me. Kind of like how why people embellish the stories they tell online. Are they doing it solely for likes and retweets? I guess. Some people are just totally willing to be that open and free with any given audience, and I'll never understand it, but I'm here for it, I guess. I always tell my audience here on YouTube and the internet to not tell people your plans, because doing so, it's a much easier time for that to end up in utter disappointment. I also think by telling people your plans, you're less likely to get them done, or you're more so full of shit than you think you are. An example of this is recently Tom Arnold apparently teamed up with former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen, saying to everybody that they've got big plans to take Trump down. They've got all sorts of different recordings and things that are under their belt that are just going to make the president want to step down on his own accord. Okay, by you telling me that, Tom and Michael, I absolutely know that you're full of shit. You told me your plans. You've telegraphed your punch. All you did in that instance was rile people up to this unattainable goal. You put it out there to the universe that you got something on a guy. So what happens when you inevitably don't come up with it? You're getting people's hopes up and just setting them up for disappointment. Actions like this, in this same vein, all they do is reek of desperation. You are setting expectations that are so high. You're setting them on everybody and everything in your general vicinity. And once they're out there, and once they go unfulfilled, it's a very hard slate to wipe clean. People who are all talk and no action are the most disappointing people among us. And it's sad that I feel like we waste most of our time on these kinds of people, and I still haven't quite figured out why. Is it so much that they're just great storytellers and we don't care if their plans go unfulfilled? I don't really know. People are fickle and their interests kind of wane over time, so I don't know what keeps people around anymore. When you think about it, for every cliche in life, there's a contradiction to it. Absence makes the heart grow fonder, but out of sight, out of mind. The early bird gets the worm, but good things come to those who wait. The squeaky wheel gets the grease, but silence is golden. And my favorite, the pen is mightier than the sword, but actions speak louder than words. So what is exactly going on here? I think it's just as simple as saying that people feel more than one thing at once. We can be excited to meet somebody new off of Tinder or OkCupid because, we both know the reason that you signed up for the app. But you can also be disappointed at the same time when the person is making the conversation all about the thing that you want to do, that one thing, the end result to a nice night of possibly meeting somebody. We can be happy for our friend who just got engaged while simultaneously feeling jealousy that our time hasn't come yet. We can be annoyed with our workload but thankful that we're employed. I understand that these examples are pretty much related just to me, but I can only speak for myself, of course. Life in general is full of gray area. And sometimes I think things can get a little less fun the more definition we put on certain aspects of things. A lot of things seem ethereal and unknown to us, but putting that stamp of approval or disapproval on a thing just makes it seem a lot less exciting in a way. And some people need definition. I get that. But it seems most of the time people need this definition in scenarios that are more free-flowing than others. Just like there are people who are far too laid back in scenarios that need super definition to them and for people to sit up and pay attention in an unflinching manner. Neither of these things is necessarily incorrect, I think. It's just sometimes we have trouble figuring out when to sit back and when to stand up and fight. We have trouble figuring out which one is which, and we end up trying to force a square peg into a circular hole. Having just come back from VidCon, I think it's safe for me to say that there are people out there online and who just exist in the world who overshare and overplay their hand way too much. It's as if they're dangling their personality traits on a stick in front of their audience's faces, just keeping it out of arm's reach, leaving people to only want more and more and more as their content presses on. But my question is, how does one do that when you share nearly every little intimate detail of your life with the entire internet? What do you do after that? Are you just starting to make things up? Are you starting to just create things solely for the content? Things that are, in essence, disingenuous or possibly disruptive or illegal? I know that seems like a slippery slope fallacy, but really, where do some of these content creators draw the line? Where is the mystery anymore? Do we really need to share every little aspect of our lives in order to become relatable to one another? Is that a thing these days? Personally, I think there are things that we feel and we think that should only be shared with those we most trust in the world. And me personally, I implicitly trust no one except for my parents. How does one trust the ethers of the internet with your most personal thoughts on things? The more that we do that, the more we may as well not exist in real life anymore. We may as well just become our digital footprints. There's actually an article I read about YouTube couples who break up and why it's necessary for them to share with their audience if they've got a big enough following. I simply cannot identify with that. Your obligations become skewed the more you put your life out there online. Wouldn't you think it's fair to say that it's really nobody's business why a couple cannot be together anymore, but because you share all of these things with your audience, you have to let them dip into that too? When is the me time? When do things become just for you versus for you and your audience? I think some things are just better left unsaid. I think being able to choose what you share with the world is a luxury that gets lost on the best of us. Many times online or any particular thread in maybe the trashy subreddit, it's like you continually have to ask people why would they put something like that out there on the internet? Why would you share something like that? And I guess this just extends to why we share anything with anyone. I always will think it's a good idea to exchange thoughts and feelings with people, but I think it's important for us to personally draw lines in the sand. We have to know what we're comfortable with and what we wouldn't do. But that's the thing about sand, it can always get washed away every time the waves crash against the shore. I guess after a time, and I think I'll always feel this way, it's probably a good thing that we see kind of the worst of the worst out there. They make themselves known to the general public in a way that we get to see thanks to this information superhighway. We get to see it quick and we get to see it with ease. When people make their actions known, when people telegraph their punches in this certain way, it also gives us a sense to see what not to do and how not to act and what to avoid in our waking lives. The hope that I have is that we're at least aware enough to know what we need to ignore. When we watch people telegraph their punches, we know not to do that. We can see things coming from a mile away. We know when people are full of shit. But we'll just get smarter when calling it out, I guess. I think negativity and anger and vileness, in a sense, I guess that's something that eats itself from within. It shows up on your face. It shows up on your exterior the more that you let yourself sit in it. And if you get a bunch of people together who share these same horrible values, these negative values, they'll eventually rot from the inside as well until only one is left and they suffocate themselves entirely. Now that's just, for me, a long-term societal plan, I guess. We just keep being the decent and civil people, actual civil people that we are, and the good will always win out. Good can't crush itself, it just gets better and better. But remember, don't tell anybody your plans. Starting now, I guess. That's it for me. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Ginescast. VidCon kind of empowered me to step out of my comfort zone and start to interact with more people. So it's not just me sitting here into a microphone. Like I said, don't tell people your plans, but I do have the idea of collaboration sometime in the future. Once I get my shit together and my ducks in a row a little bit more, we've got great things planned for this podcast. I'm very excited. The Ginescast comes out every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you enjoyed the podcast, please give it a like, a share, or leave your feedback below. Want more from me? You can follow me at HelloGines on Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch, or shoot me an email at gina.annunziato@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Ginescast. I'm your host, Gina Annunziato, and I will see you next time. Take care.